Alright, the first most toxic fight in the entire game is, of course, the Global Dokkan Campaign Special Battle, Stage 1 versus Rose and Zamasu. You guys have experienced it. You guys know the reason why he's on this list, but let's break it down just a bit to explain why they are so terrifying. First of all, it's a locking stage, thanks to Zamasu. He locks any one of your units, it's guaranteed every turn. So for a fight that starts, they're strong right away, and Zamasu will probably lock your weakest unit in slot 1. It's pretty toxic there. Not only that, but Zamasu is constantly chipping away at your health, 50,000 damage every turn. Which again is not a big issue, but if you just survive the previous rotation barely, like, oh man, I just escaped, and the next thing you know, you just see Zamasu take your health all the way down to 1, it's over, right? Then you have to deal with AoEs from Rose Goku Black. He also, turn 1's already hit 6 mil plus, just turn 1, due to Zamasu being present, and then his buffs post super. Like, his super is doing 6.6 mil, his normals are doing what? Is that 2.7 mil, I think, is the damage on those normals. Again, I'm just calculating right here, right now. So, turn 1, 2.7 mil normals, and 6.6 mil supers. And again, if you get a guy who's weak, it just gets locked into slot 1, they're dead. The other issue is you can't target Rose at all until Zamasu's dead, or else Rose will absolutely obliterate any person you have, because he has the 50% buff already from Zamasu being present, and then he's building his attack 30% every time he gets attacked, so you don't want to bring AoE people in here. It just gets very hectic. They hit insanely hard right away turn 1, when a lot of your units, especially from the 10th year, are slot 2 units, who then can get locked in slot 1 and then just die. There's even units who are post-super still taking damage, like AGL Gogeta. Even Tech Vegito can take damage post-super, but nowhere near as bad as what AGL Gogeta is taking. Fizz Omega can get slaughtered in this fight too. There's a lot of guys who can get slaughtered in this fight because Rose hits ridiculous numbers. Again, even when Rose builds up fully, he's still hitting insane numbers without Zamasu present. But yeah, this fight's very toxic due to that. AoEs, locking, you're losing health. Oh, and don't forget, Zamasu's healing every turn, and I think it's like, what, 20,000 HP every turn. So, and he has 250,000 HP, so he's basically healing 10% of his health. Actually, it's 25,000. So he heals 10% of his HP every turn. So it takes at least till turn 4 or 5 to kill him before the Part 2 LRs dropped. So yeah, this fight is insane. Never in a million years would I think that a Gogeta clone fight would make this list, but this fight was so annoying. Yes, once you figured out the gimmick and once you were able to get around it, it wasn't too bad. But you do remember, Gogeta, even the non-clone Gogeta, is still getting attack every time he gets hit, and on top of that, he has 1.2 billion HP, which is ridiculous. And you also have to remember, you can't bring AoEs in here, because if you bring AoEs, you'll buff all of these Gogetas up, and I'll have the screenshot here. This is how many attacks you'll see if you start attacking these clones. It's so crazy how many attacks what do you even do? And then they hit you with the normal and you just die. It's over. You just lose. So it's a normal by that, not even that super. I don't even know. There's no stats that tells you how much their attack goes up when they get hit once, but it's crazy how much damage they do after getting hit just once. Like, I think that was 37 million or something like that, just raw, which means it was closer to 50. I don't know, those Gogeta clones were doing insane damage. But yeah, I mean, this fight's pretty toxic because, first of all, you have to get through the clone gimmick, and then once you get around it, again, it's not terrible, but you can't bring counters, you can't bring AoEs, so you already are locked out of a certain amount of units. You can bring like dodge units and stuff like that, but after turn, I think it's 5, they all start attacking again. And not that they do a ton of damage, but they do start all attacking, so there's a ton of attacks on your screen the entire time. And then again, Gogeta's getting stronger every time you attack him, so if you don't bring heavy damage dealers, then he's gonna build his attack up way too quickly for how much damage you're doing to him, and then you'll just die. So I mean, this fight again is pretty toxic. I don't think it's as hard as really any of these special battles, but it is pretty toxic if you don't know what's going on, because you can be frustrated the entire time. Because another thing too is when I noticed is certain runs, the gimmick changes on how you could tell it's a clone. One time it was that one of them was STR, so it was 4 int Gogetas, and then one was STR. The second time I didn't even know how you were supposed to distinguish it, because they all look the same. The only way you could figure it out is if you checked which one could also have their super attack nullified, or like that couldn't have his super attack nullified. That was it. That's the only way you would be able to know, like if you looked at the boss effects. That's it. That's the only way you'll know, which is crazy. Or I guess it wasn't that. I forget. Yeah, it was a boss effect, but I forgot which boss effect it was. But yeah, I mean, it's the only way to know. And if you didn't know, you would just be constantly attacking clones and just getting slaughtered, and you have to go back in and keep trying to figure it out, which is insane. All right, next with the Infinite Zamasu fight, not much I have to talk about here, is he just built up his attack insanely fast per every turn. On the final one, by the way, I'm not talking about the other 4. Of course, if we're talking about no item run, this fight is super easy. Or sorry, with items, this fight's super easy, of course. But they do expect you to complete this fight at some point, no item run. And the reason for that is because you get a title. People don't care about titles, that's fine, you don't have to get it. I'm just saying that there is a reward for doing it no item, and I think they should do that way more often. It doesn't have to be a stone reward, but making it to where you get a title off of it is just some kind of accomplishment for doing a no item, because a lot of people, like me, just do it for fun, right? Like, I want to enjoy the content as long as possible, and so how do I do that? No item runs, right? But, and the Infinite Zamasu fight is it's a very gimmicky fight as well, just like the Gogeta clone fight. The difference, of course, with this fight is you need a lot of guys with attack break in order to get past it. The Zamasu super is always in slot 2, if not 99% of the time. I'm not going to say 100% because I don't know if someone's like, oh, actually, I've seen him super in slot 1 once. Okay, well, good for you, I guess. But 99% of the time, he's super against slot 2. You can attack break him with the year 7s and then constantly do that to get around it, because his normals are not strong enough to be worried about. It's his supers that can go up to, I think the cap on the damage is 31 million. So, yeah, I mean, unless you're just like chancing it with dodge characters or something like that, you're just going to get absolutely obliterated by any person you're using right now against a 31 million super if you're going for the no item run. Again, the fight's not hard if you're using the item, of course, but this is referring to you trying to get the title or something of that sort. This fight is pretty crazy. Alright, next is the Global Dokkan Campaign Special Battle Stage 3 versus Omega. The reason why I have him on here is not even because he's hard. Like, the Omega fight is really not super difficult because, again, he's only hitting for, what is it? The Dokkan info doesn't have it because his territory is when it has his stat boost. I think he's doing 6.3 or 4 million. I think that's what he was doing when I saw in the grade 8 mode. The greatest way to look for damage is if you go in grade 8 mode, you can get a good idea of what the damage is looking like. Of course, it also does apply multipliers. Like if you're using AGL GT Goku's grade 8 form, right? Then you are fighting a tech boss, it will apply those multipliers, right? So you have to keep that in mind. But yeah, since Fizz Omega is supering against GT Goku's AGL, I believe it was like a 6 point something mil super, which is pretty high. I mean, that's a pretty high amount of super. On Dokkan info, he only has a 2.4, but again, the territorial skill does change his numbers. But yeah, I mean, this fight is not hard because he's hitting hard. He does have a ton of HP. He has close to 700 million HP. But the biggest thing is his locking and his stuns. The recovering HP is not that big of an issue here. He does have AoEs as well, but his AoEs are not that strong. I definitely think they held back on this fight. This fight could have been as toxic, if not worse, than Rose and Zamasu if they gave him more attack. Not that I don't think anyone wanted that, but yeah, this fight would have been pretty crazy if they gave him just a little more attack. But yeah, I mean, the issue is definitely the locking and then right into a stun. He always super slot 1, so he's going to lock someone slot 1, which it doesn't tell you that, but most likely someone's getting locked in slot 1, and then they get hit by a stun super, and then they completely cancel out an entire person for a turn, which is, you know, sometimes your slot 1 units are your heaviest hitters, and you're just stuck not being able to use them because they're stunned the entire time. It gives AGL Super Gogeta some value, but that's if you get to turn 5. This fight can go pretty quick due to how weak Omega is, but it is very toxic because the entire time AoEs, yes, are a part of it, but you're always getting locked in, you're always getting stunned. It's just very annoying when you're trying just to complete this fight. Alright, you know why this is on the list. Festival of Battles. I mean, Vegeta and Trunks, thank the Lord, help make this fight so much easier, right? They make every person a stacker now. I'm very excited to go try this out myself. A double Vegeta and Trunks leader running through Festival Battle. I think that's going to be a ton of fun. Maybe I'll live stream it, I don't know. But the greatest thing now is since everyone's a stacker, Festival Battles is going to be pretty much a piece of cake. But before Vegeta and Trunks, this is just one of the most toxic fights in the game. Having to dedicate 2 hours of your time just to lose is pretty crazy because you have to be very diligent on how you're stacking people, how you're building them offensively and defensively. You need to know how to calc. You need to know how much defense you have is enough, right? Sometimes you'll overstack defense, sometimes you'll overstack attack, and then you will lose the run because you're not giving yourself a proper balance of attack and defense. It's a really rough event, I will say, especially because they have a charge count on it. I think it's the biggest issue, right? If there was no charge count, this definitely would be an easy event. Or not easy, but I think a lot of people will enjoy it more because you're not being forced into... You're not being forced in trying to blitz this event. You can have a little more fun with it, not enough pressure, whatever. But the fact that there is a limit makes this really rough, and the bosses get insane once you get to like the movie 8 Broly movie Goku. That's the checkpoint of just welcome to the gauntlet. So yeah, I mean, there's a reason why it's on this list. It's so much time. You can lose at the very end, and they got to restart and do it all over again. Pretty rough. Again, Vegeta and Trunks definitely revolutionizes this and makes this a ton easier, but yeah. Alright, next one I'm going to talk about here is the GT Boss Rush, but it's really not that difficult. I mean, yes, the GT Boss Rush is a very difficult fight, a lot more difficult than what we saw with the Divine Wrath and Mortal Will boss rushes. I don't think those really compare to these. These are definitely a lot more difficult, but they're not as toxic. Or, well, I mean, okay, how about that? The Divine Order of Will are not as toxic, but they do more damage. These are a little more toxic, but they can do a little less damage. I mean, they're just not as strong as some of these other fights. But the reason why it's on here is because there's so many things going on, right? For example, when you get to Rage Shenron, he's not hard at all. He only has 30,000 HP, 500 attack, whatever. But he has a ton of abilities where he's just like hindering your team. He nullifies damage done from Ki Blast. He reduces damage received from int types. He has a super where he can do 100% stun. He also has another super that can do 100% seal, right? There's a lot going on. Then you have Oceanus, right, who also stuns on super. Then you have the Super Naturon Shenron, who seals just as an ability. Not even he doesn't even do anything. He just seals an opponent. Nova can dodge, and he reduces damage received by STR types, while doing decent damage. Not crazy. Ice Shenron dodges and locks character switching, and does a 4 mil super that has 40% defense drop, which is pretty nasty, by the way. Then you go into Sin Shenron, where he doesn't really have that many nasty mechanics, but he's doing a 6.6 mil super with a 40% defense drop, and he has a 100% recover HP. He doesn't fully heal his HP, he just has a 100% chance to heal every turn. Then Omega Shenron with over 500 million HP, 2.5 million attack, 80% damage reduction, which means he's going to be there for a long time. Attack 7 times a turn. He has AoEs. And then he does a 7 mil super that has a 40% chance of lowering defense. He also disables dodge, just like Ice Shenron. And he also can randomly change all your key spears on the field. So Omega especially, right? A 7 mil super that has that drops your defense by 40%. That's nasty. Like, there's a lot of guys who rely on raw defense, right? Omega Shenron's a great example of just defense and damage reduction, right? But dropping, I mean, he is lucky it's an extreme int boss, because he would be absolutely just shredded if it was any other type. But dude, a 40% defense drop is rough. Even Gogeta could have some struggles against this because it is that low, but it is a super, so he might be fine. But it is pretty incredible how strong these bosses are, and the biggest issues, of course, are the stunning, the sealing, and the defense drops. Again, not as toxic as some of these other ones, but they definitely have some toxic mechanics. All right, finally, let's look at the Global Dokkan Campaign Special Battle Stage 4. I was kind of hesitant to put this one on here because it doesn't really have toxic mechanics. It's just toxic because he just gets attacked so quickly. Like, the problem with this Gogeta fight, right, is he goes from 0 to 100 in a matter of 2 seconds. Turn 4, right, he's doing 11 mil supers. Now, that's, you know, maybe not as crazy to some, it is to others, but you gotta remember, turn 1, he only has a, what is that, a 3 point, or about a 4 mil-esque super, just about, for close to 5 mil super. That means in 3 turns, he gains 6 million attack. And his things are all scripted, which do help, but he's always supering slot 3 on the first rotation. And if you have an awful slot 3 unit, you just lose, right? He super slot 2 and 3, by the way. So you need a solid slot 1 to tank the normals. Then you need some people in slot 2 and 3 to hold down the fort against his super attacks. And then he super slot 2 and 3 again. And then he super slot 2 and 3 again. And then he super slot 1 and 2, and then slot 1 and 3. So he has a weird pattern of attacks, but he's always going after the floater just to give them, you know, trouble, because that's where your weakest unit most of the time is at. And this, again, for how fast he ramps up, you're gonna need almost someone with dodge in that last slot to be able to handle how strong that super attack can be. Again, luckily it's scripted, so you can kind of play around what to expect. But for example, like Nova Shenron is great in this fight because it's a Ki Blast super, so he can go ahead and nullify it. But the issue is that he's so weak against these normals, because by the time we get to turn 4, it's not just 11 mil supers. And he also has, by the way, 850 million HP. He also has, let's see here, 1800, what is that? Like a 2 point, like almost 5 mil normals when he supers. If he supers, that's almost 5 mil normals. That's how crazy this Gogeta gets, man. He does some insane damage very quickly. And again, all this stuff is scripted to really target the slot 2 and slot 3 guys who are not normally meant to tank 11 mil supers, even post super. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys think I missed out on any toxic fights, or do you guys think I hit the money on all of these fights? Let me know in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this content, the first playlist is going to be all of my voice content, and the second one is going to be to all of my Dokkan Battle videos in general. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.